Testing. Just checking to see if you can hear me okay. Awesome. Perfect. Cool. Love me some Pantera. Yeah, I play in a band where all we play is Pantera. And then I play in a band where all we play is Megadeth and Slayer and all these different things. Yeah, it's a lot of fun. Cool. Very nice. So it's nice to see everybody. That startled me. Oh, that's funny. All right, everybody, let's go through the line here. Paul, hey, Paul is here. And David is here, Roy is here, Darren is here, Jared is here. So I see there's a lot of faces from the last one. Oh, Paul is angry again. This one better work. Steve, David, John, Warren, Michael, Jared, Barry, Kevin, Dan, Paul. I think I got a few doubles there. Steve again. Rick. There's Rick. Let's see. Kevin, David. CB Twilly? I'm not sure how to say that. Roy, hey, Roy. Everybody, thank you so much for being here. This is awesome. So I'm just going to answer your questions, hang out a little bit. I know I had mentioned this in the last session, so I don't want to waste anybody's time with it, but I do want to let you know that GearFest, Sweetwater's GearFest is coming up in June, okay? And regardless of whether I was there or not, it's so worth going to. Hey, everybody, it's so worth going to, okay? It's in Fort Wayne, Indiana. I think it's the weekend of the 21st, 22nd, or 22nd, 23rd, whatever. If you go look up Sweetwater, you'll see all about GearFest. But I wanted to let you know that I will be doing a seminar at Sweetwater this year on Friday, because Sweetwater GearFest is Friday and Saturday. Well, Friday I'll be doing one at 12:45 p.m. So if you're planning on going to GearFest, please make sure that you're there on Friday at 12:45 p.m. so you can come to my session and we can hang out. It'd be fun. I'm looking forward to it. And then Friday night, there's an all-star jam that I'm in with, the other people that are doing sessions or clinics there. And then Saturday, I'll be hanging out all day, talking to people, doing whatever. And then Sunday is the meet and greet. Okay, so Sunday, if you're going to be around on Sunday, we're meeting at a place called the Hoppy Gnome, which is for 21 and older. It's just a brewery. We met there last year. It was really cool. We're going to meet there again this year at 2 o'clock and hang out for a few hours and just play some music, play some guitar, and talk and have a couple drinks and just hang out. It'll be great. So anyway, I'll get to all the stuff that you've got up there. Hey, everybody. Hey, Russell, Chris, Don, Tino, Victoria, Scott, Patrick, Rock. Clayt is back. Paul, I keep seeing your I don't know what you got going on over there, but I see your texts. So I don't know what you got going there. But Bob says he has an Ibanez S Premium on order with Sweetwater. That is awesome. It's a great guitar. You're going to love it. Mike, hello. Chris. Oh, says Chris is going, who's going, show of hands. Yeah, I hope you guys... Yeah, Paul, I'm not sure what the problem is, buddy. Randolph, check your sound and settings and cables, yeah. Brian is there. Hey, Brian. Darth Janky? Hey! I don't know who Darth Janky is, but that's okay. So anyway, yeah, it's going to be fun. So June 22nd, 23rd, on the Friday is my session, and I would love for you all to be there. And we're going to talk about soloing. We're gonna hang out, and then afterwards, we can go into the cafeteria, I'll find a big table, and all hang out and just chill out. It's going to be great. Steve says Gibson needs to 48 months with Sweetwater. You're right. I'm surprised that they haven't. Clayt says your fretboard mastery and play blues guitar for life courses are awesome. Thank you, Clayt. I appreciate that so much. So, okay, so anyway, keep that in mind. And I doubt that anybody here is from Germany because it's 1 o'clock in the morning or 2 o'clock in the morning over there. But if you are, I'm actually going to be going over to Germany for a couple of weeks in July, doing some clinics and stuff over there as well. And I'm going to try and set up a meet and greet and meet all of our Guitar Zoom friends overseas as well as best I can. So, but there'll be more information on that coming too. So anyway, let's go ahead and get started. I've got a bunch of questions to get to here. The first question I had, which I had from a few people, let's see here. Chris says, speaking of Ibanez, would you happen to have a good resource for a replacement neck? I don't. Picked up a Herman Lee with a cracked neck. Oh, that sucks. Sucks it has a cracked neck. I don't. I really don't. You might have to get a hold of Ibanez directly and see if you could work with them. The only one I know anymore is Warmoth, who's made stuff for years, and I don't know. I don't. I wish I did. Mr. Lehman says, hey, Steve, I finally made it in time. David says, I live in Franklin, Indiana. I'll be there. I'm glad, David. That'll be cool to meet. Okay? Mark says, sounds like I'm on a world tour. Need a Dallas stop. Actually, I had a plan for a Dallas stop this fall. But we'll just have to see how things work out. The Hoppy Gnome is Sunday. That's right. Sunday at 2 p.m. That's right. We'll be at the Hoppy Gnome. Evan from Sweetwater, my buddy from Sweetwater, will be there. I think my buddy Richard from Hughes and Kettner is going to be there. And I think Evan was going to bring a couple of amps and a couple of his guitars for people just to screw around with, try some different things out. So anyway, here, I'm going to show you this super quick here because I had a couple questions about this. Okay, so for those of you that are weirded out by a 7-string, I'm going to try and explain this to you a little bit. It's really not as scary as you think, okay? I use it for a band that I play with. There's a gentleman that I've been friends with for a long time. I played on some of his albums, and there's a possibility of a tour coming up for him. So this is the 7-string, and the easiest thing about a 7-string is if you think of it like a 6-string. Now, visually, it kind of screws you up a little bit, but if you think of it like a 6-string, all you're really using the 7-string for is Evan the guy in the video with John Petrucci? I'm not sure if Evan's in that video or not. But I digress here. So the 7th-string is really used for more of like upper-level power chords. And then a lot of single note. Yeah, it's really not that bad because everything else you play exactly the same. It just gives you that availability of doing some more stuff with it. And so it's a lot of fun. This particular guitar is actually a Schecter, which, you know me, I played 99% Ibanez stuff, but Evan actually turned me on to this Schecter and said, dude, you really got to try it because the neck is super thin on it, and it might match what you like in my finger size because I got small fingers. So he sent it to me, and it's a lot of fun to play. Now, I've got a couple other 7-strings too, but this particular one was really, really cool. And these come with the new Fishman Fluence pickups, which are kind of fun. So anyway, the string, this is a low B. So if you think about it, you had E and E. Well, now it's just starting all over again. So you went from E to B. Well, here you went E to B. Okay? Let's see what we got here. Yep, Angela says just extra B string. Yeah, and they're kind of fun. I mean, honestly, the thing that's a little weird about this is the Keith Merrow artist version. Is that this is a 26.5-inch length neck, where all my Ibanez stuff is 25.5. So it is a little bit bigger stretch for me in length, right? In width, I mean, the neck is just paper thin. It's really, really thin. It takes a little bit more to get to that 7th string up here, but the neck is super thin, so it compensates for that. But the 26.5 does make a little bit of difference, where I have a couple other Ibanez's that are 25-inch, just like the regular ones. And yeah, it plays really nice. So let's see here. Note structure is the same as the 2nd string. Yeah, exactly the same. Yeah. Darth says he's got an Apex 200, which is cool. Paul can't see. Oh, an Evil Twin, very nice. Yeah, they're fun. I mean, the thing about guitars, you don't have to spend a ton of money to get a fun guitar. The big thing is you just got to be inspired. That's what you're looking for. Let's see here. Jim says, I guess that is similar to a baritone. It would be. It'd be somewhat similar to a baritone, correct? Depending on which company baritone you're looking at. But yeah, I would think so. Is D the thinnest neck? Well, it kind of depends. Like a lot of the stuff that I play has a C shape to it. But my Ibanez stuff all has the RG style neck. This guitar in particular, this gem, now I own a bunch of different gems, but this one has got the thinnest neck on the planet. And some of you may have played this last year because I brought this to GearFest last year. And I don't know if I'm going to bring it to GearFest this year or if I should bring my S Premium or what I should bring. I think I'm going to bring this one again, my tried and true. Yeah, I don't know. Maybe I'll bring this. Which one do you think I should bring? I don't know. I'll figure it out. Okay, so let's see here. Clayt says, do you recommend fully learning the pentatonic scales before attempting the diatonic scales? Well, again, what I recommend, Clayt, is that you don't confuse yourself. Because the faster you try and go through things, the more blurry everything becomes and the less you can manipulate it. So what I always try and explain to people, and it really is true, is that if you can build a real foundation of pentatonic, like really be able to see it. Like one of the things I try and teach people all the time, which you've probably heard me talk about, is just studying the neck. Like don't even play, just study the neck. Take a piece of paper and have all your stuff written out, have it charted out on there, and just stare at it and study it. Turn the TV off, turn the phone off, turn Facebook off, lock yourself in a room without your kids, and you just study. And you learn to visualize. So what you see in your head, when you look down at your fretboard, you see it on your fretboard. Because if you see your fretboard with what I call blinders, if you see your fretboard with just boxes and you don't see how they connect together, you'll never really learn how to move in and out of them, okay? And again, that's one of my biggest things that I try and preach to people is we tend to try and move too fast, number one. And number two, we get into these rudimentary practices all the time where everything's about scale practice and speed practice and arpeggios and licks, and they're all good. It's all good, okay? I call it route practicing, something that you do over and over and over. But we don't spend enough time trying to get to know the instrument. Like we're just trying to practice things all the practice. And again, I'm not saying that's a bad thing. I'm just saying there's something incredibly freeing, and believe me, because I know, because it wasn't always that way for me. But when you can look down and go, okay, we're in the key of X, whatever key we're in, whatever scale I've got, pentatonic, diatonic, whatever, and I can look down and go, all right, here we go. I can decide then where I want to go, not only because I can only see one or two things, which is okay, sometimes that happens, but I can get creative. So once I can see the palette, then I can start learning to manipulate the palette, correct? And that's what you're looking for, is trying to find a way of finding an interesting way. I'm even doing it right now. I just sit and look around. Like what I was doing yesterday. I was sitting there doing this thing, which is I can do it in E minor here too. So I try and find unique ways of kind of moving around, but it all comes down to just staring and trying to absorb things, So please think about that a little bit, okay? I need some exercises to get that kind of speed and synchronization. Yeah, and it does, Jeffrey. It takes time. Well, thank you. I'm a freak. Thank you. But it does. It takes time. And here's the other thing I'll tell you, Jeffrey, and anybody else. When you build certain things up to a certain speed, what I have found is it's kind of like the tip of a pyramid, right? Up here on the very top, if you could go as fast as humanly possible, if you could go as fast as you could go, if you could back off just 10% on there, you'd sound good. Like nobody would notice it's any less fast, it's any slower. But if you could back off just a hair, all of a sudden everything kind of comes together and it sounds great, right? So if you push, try and max out. If you pull back just a little bit, everything just kind of cleans up. And it's a great thing, man. I love it. So then I just build lots of ways of moving around the fretboard. Okay, so just think about that a little bit. Let's see here. I have progressed the most studying a chart of the neck. Randolph, that's beautiful. That's perfect. Okay? I'm not lying, I'm telling you. You might sacrifice a little bit of your speed practice, or you might sacrifice another particular kind of, because we're creatures of habit, right? We're always having to do something. We're always having to fix something. We're always having to work on something. That's what we do. Okay? What we don't do is take enough time to just go, you know what, I'm just going to slow everything down and just try and figure out what I got here. Whether it's a cage thing, whether it's an arpeggio thing, you know, we always go into, well, it's all these arpeggios and I got all these positions and all this stuff. I got to play it in 7 keys and blah, blah, blah. And then we just wind up with a mess. As opposed to, let's just learn something, learn to visualize something in some key, not all 12 keys. Just what do you, like, again, for most of you out there, you don't have to answer, but how often do you play in the key of A flat? Like never, unless you're playing jazz, right? You play in A, you play in E, you play in G, you play in D, you play in B sometimes. I mean, you figure out what makes the most sense in your world and go, okay, let me try and, it's the Pareto rule, if you guys know what that is, the 80-20 rule. Just about everything in your world can be summed up into an 80-20. You know, 20% of your efforts produces 80% of your results. And the rest of the time, you're wasting a lot of time. Keys and scales and all those sorts of things are very much in that category where we'll practice a lot of things that really don't flourish into something that is really usable by us. We just practice them a lot because, well, you know, we like to practice. We like these things. I get it. I do it too. But if we could put more of our efforts into that primary 20% of something that we really, really need, or is really, really applicable to where we are in the fretboard, man, you'd get way better, way faster. So just something to think about a little bit. Okay? Bob says, I'm good moving through the pentatonic and diatonic positions with the G scale, but I have a hard time with any other scales. Well, here's what I would say, Bob. There's nothing wrong with that. Make sure that if you're doing it in G, that you also understand that you're doing it in A Dorian, B Phrygian, C Lydian, D Mixolydian, E natural minor, or E Aeolian. Understand the power that you've got playing in G, right? Don't just write it off to it's in G and there's nothing else. You've got A blues. It's A Dorian. You got your A blues right there. Okay? B Phrygian, I don't know, maybe you'd use that. C Lydian, maybe. D Mixolydian you're going to use. E Aeolian or E natural minor you're going to use all the time. So there's a lot of power there in knowing that G major scale. So what you would do is you would keep trying to kind of dive or refine what you see of that G major scale, your licks, your patterns, your arpeggios, you know, your movements, whatever it might be within the context of that scale, and then maybe start another key. Like choose the key of A or the key of D or something else that you could see yourself playing a lot, and start trying to transition the thoughts that you have in the key of G, trying to shift some of that into the next key. You know, it's easy for us to say, well, you can play in the key of A, all you do is move everything up a whole step from the key of G. In theory, that makes perfect sense, but in application, it's not that easy. So the big thing is, Bob, is choose another key. Don't leave the key of G, because you want the key of G, the key of A Dorian, the key of B Phrygian, the key of C Lydian, the key of D Mixolydian, the key of E natural minor to become your mecca, right? That's your thing. So if you're ever in those keys, Bob is rocking the place. He's the master of what's happening right now. Then start moving into another key and start developing that key, borrowing some of the things that you love most about what you're doing in G. Hopefully that makes sense to you. And start developing that a little bit, and then start developing another one and keep going. You can't be in a hurry with this stuff or you wind up with nothing. You just wind up with the same pentatonic licks over and over and over. So hopefully that helps you. Let's see here. Steve says, Steve, are you seeing patterns or notes or both? I would say I'm seeing both, but I'm seeing a lot more patterns and shapes than I am notes. Because as I'm playing, as I'm kind of moving around the fretboard, I'm not thinking about notes the whole time. But for me, it's kind of like going outside and walking to the store. You're not thinking about your feet. You're not thinking about every step that you're taking. When you cross the road, you're not thinking about all the analytics that go into not getting hit by a car. A lot of that is automated because you've done it so many times you don't think about it anymore. There are certain key elements. I must stop because there's a car coming, or I have to turn left to get to the grocery store. There's certain key elements. Those are the things I think you think about most when it comes to note names or theory to a certain degree. The rest of it, you're just trying to build into an automation. Okay? So hopefully that makes sense to you. Hello, John. Hello, Tom. Thank you, Jeff. Let's see here. Jim says there are plenty of free apps out there for studying and testing yourself the notes on the guitar neck. There are. There really are. And again, you just have to find something that works. Like all the time I'll get people that will say, okay, like when I used to teach guitar lessons, a parent would come in and the first thing they'd say is, I want my 10-year-old to learn how to play guitar, but they don't know how to read notes. And you're already, and you guys know what I mean. You're already at this understanding their mentality that they don't see the world that you see. They don't see the education that you see. I'm not saying that learning notes on a staff aren't important. They are. But do you have to learn the notes on the staff before you can learn how to play the guitar? Are they even really related? Well, it depends on what world you live in, what your plan of career is. You know what I mean? So that's the hard part about this, is understanding that as you're studying, you have to find what makes the most sense to what you're trying to do. So like Jim said, there's lots of ways of learning the notes on the guitar. The biggest question is how to go about it and what are you going to do with it, right? So that would be a great memorization study. And Jim, maybe you even have an idea of an app that you would recommend for somebody. That would be awesome. And maybe you study a little bit of that, right? You sit and you study that for a while, then you put that away and now you study something else. Because the big thing I try and tell people is you can study even when you don't have your guitar with you. You could be on a plane, you could be on a train, you could be at work, you could be at school. And as long as you're not going to get in trouble at that particular moment, you have the capability of thinking about something to do with your guitar journey. Then when you get home, that's when you grab the guitar and you start making the effort of these things. Whether it's a technical thing, a creative aspect, something when you grab and play, right? Randolph says, I used to have trouble with some of the harder positions until I played the hard positions more than the others. That's right. That's the way it goes. Cool. Let's see here. I think we're doing good. I tend to just step through the scale instead of stepping over things. And that's the big thing that I learned not to do, because when I step through a scale, I wind up playing speed licks. Because I've played them 85 million times in my life. I don't play near as fast as I used to, because I used to practice that stuff for hours on end. Now I practice a lot of other things and still practice speed stuff to a certain degree, but I tend to find more excuses. Like I find really hard songs to play that are really fast, and that's how I get some of my practice in of my speed picking and things like that. Oh, Bob's got one. Guitar Orb is a good one, he said. Okay, that's cool. Thank you. Let's see here. Off subject, but seeing that we have lefties here, how does Coco Montoya play right-handed so wicked upside down? I got a friend from Fargo that plays the guitar upside down. He doesn't restring it, he plays it upside down. So the thick string is on the bottom and the thin string is on the top, and it weirds me out watching him play. Because it's just so different. Or watching a lefty isn't so bad because everything is still, you're up here, it's still a thick string, and you're down here, it's still a thin string. But yeah, he's upside down, which is just crazy to me. Let's see here. Okay, wish I could try before I buy. No lefty stores in my town. Well, Kevin, are you going to be going to GearFest? Because if you go to GearFest, they probably would have some left-handed guitars for you to try out. That's what's always nice. I mean, I live in Fargo. In Fargo, they don't sell any of the stuff I play, right? So I have to go to a bigger city to try things out. And Yeah, unfortunately, that's just the way it is. Even Minneapolis, which is about 4 hours from where I am, you know, Minneapolis, St. Paul is quite large, but they still don't have everything that I play. So it's nice to go to a really big store like Sweetwater and actually try out stuff, which is great. Dan says, in your experience, are most of your live band solos based mostly on memorized notes, licks, or for a particular solo versus being mostly improvisational? Dan, it depends on the song. It really does. It depends on the song. So if I deem the solo worth learning at least some of the elements of that solo, then I will learn it. Like, I can't tell you the last time I sat and learned an actual solo verbatim. I mean, I learned so many things I don't even know, but, learned everything verbatim, note for note. As far as the solo goes, because I tend to jam a lot of the solos that I play, but I try and keep it honest to a certain degree. Like if I'm playing, like I mentioned, Pantera. If I'm playing in my Pantera band, there are certain elements of Dime's licks and solos that I'm going to use. I might not use all of it, but there's certainly parts of it. Like if I was playing the Cowboys from Hell solo, I'm going to keep that stuff in there because it's worth learning. Where if I was doing, I don't know, a lot of the dime bag solos I do, I can never say I do everything completely right because I tend to inject a little bit of my playing into just about everything I do, but I try and keep them honest. That's a good way of saying it. Where if I was playing over Paranoid by Sabbath, I wouldn't do really anything like the solo. I would go off and do my own thing. So every situation is different that way. That's the best answer I can give you. Sometimes they're just kind of doing the own thing, and sometimes they're worth learning. Like I remember learning "Turn Up the Radio" by Autograph many years ago, and that solo it's so cool that it's worth learning, and it really is signature for me. Like Crazy Train, I don't think you really have a right in the world of metal to mess with the Crazy Train solo. I think it kind of has to be to your best ability, as authentic as you can make it, as honest, I'll say, to the original. It might not be exact, but at least you're trying to pay it some homage, I would think. Okay? Let's see here. Do you make a chord minor by adding the minor third to the major triad, or can you add any minor tone to it? No, you make a chord minor by changing the major third to a minor third, right? So if you've got a D major bar chord, well, let's just even look down here. If we got an A major chord, that note right here on the second string, doesn't matter what fingers you use, but that note right there is C sharp. That's the major third. If you want it to be minor, you have to take that note and move it down one, which gives it the minor sound. So you're playing a minor third inside there. Yep, I see Roy had mentioned that. Yeah, that's right. So you have to replace the third of the chord, the root third fifth. You got to replace that third, which is a major third. You have to convert that into a minor third by lowering it one half step. Okay? Let's see here. Okay, cool. Oh, David says, don't mean to change the subject, but I wanted to say I ran into a video from 2011 of you playing in a Wasp tribute band. I don't do that anymore. I do a lot of these bands like that where, I played for years in a band where, we drew really big audiences and played a lot of cover music, from Def Leppard to whatever. And it was a lot of fun, and the guys I played with are still my best friends in the whole world. But since then, when I play in cover bands, it's always very selective. Like, I'll do the Wasp thing for a while, and then I'll do a Slayer thing for a while, and then I'll do a Prong thing for a while, and then I'll do a Megadeth thing for a while. And then usually one of them will come popping back up again, do a big four one with, Anthrax and Metallica and Slayer and Megadeth and... I mean, that's the kind of stuff I love playing on stage. I love a loud, energetic stuff when the audience is going crazy, and it's just something I enjoy doing. So, so I don't do that anymore. Jeff says, have I ever been to Hessfest? I have never been to Hessfest. What's that guy's name again? His first name? Something Hess. Well, you'll tell me, I'm sure. I've never met him. I don't know him at all, but no, I haven't. Let's see here. Kevin says, I'd love to, but I'm in St. Louis with a 1-year-old. The 1-year-old would have fun, I'm telling you. But I get it. Let's see here. Yeah, your cousin is Tommy Victor? Are you serious? Yeah, David Gilmour's solos are utterly perfect. They really are. Tom Hess, thank you. That's it, Tom Hess. Thank you. Yes, I've never met him, and I don't know a lot about Hess Fest or anything like that. But yeah, Tom Hess, that's right. I'd like to meet him sometime. We've never run in the same circles. Tommy Victor is your cousin? That is freaking cool, man. I love prog. Well, tell him I said hello. Tell him to watch my video sometime because I think he's awesome. That's great. Cool. All right. Anyway, so let's keep going here. Looks like we got some of that stuff out of the way. Let's go to our list here. Steve, can you help me with string skipping? I lose my right hand a lot doing this. You got it. Bob says, do I ever play original material when playing live? I have done original material before. The hard part is it depends on what you're trying to do. And I'm not going to get into a big dissertation because we could spend an hour just talking about cover band versus original material. But if you're already known and you do original material, people will come and see you. If you're not known, it's a little bit harder because you have to build an audience. And the only way to really build an audience in 2019, you can put out music, but you got to get out and play. And you got to play a lot. The more you play, the more people come out and see you, the more they get to know you. It's easier when you're younger and you don't have as much responsibility and you can travel a lot, and you don't have a family. It's way easier to be on the road a lot to build that. But anytime you can build a name for yourself or your band or something, it's a benefit. The original stuff that I've done original stuff in a number of different bands with other people that had a bit of a following too, which is always nice. Yeah, and original material is great, and that again is one of the big things that I'd love 2019 to be for me is writing some more original material and getting out and doing something with it. But I heard Eddie Trunk. If you guys listen to Eddie Trunk at all, he said it perfect. He said that it used to be that you would make music and then you would tour to support the album sales. And in 2019, it's just the opposite. You make music as a promotion and then to go out and tour. So, because there's no money to be made on the albums. So you have to go out and tour to try and make the money, and that's where you sell the merch and things like that. So it's upside down to what it used to be. It used to be the money was made on the albums and you'd go out and tour to sell the album. Now it's the other way around. You just release music for nothing because you don't make a lot of money on it and hope that you can make enough going out and playing. So what I try and do is I have friends and things where I try and do different, bigger shows or different events like that are really worth it, where I don't get to play as much as I used to, which I love playing. But I just, honestly, I couldn't afford it anymore. It cost too much money to to play. I always tell people the day I stopped playing out a lot was the day I started making money again. So unfortunately, it's a tough gig out there, which Prong would tell you. It's not easy, man. Yeah, Tommy Victor would tell you that. You got to work hard. You got to play a lot. Jim says, I find that original material goes down better at some venues and not at others. With experience, you get to know your crowds. Oh, for sure. Yeah. That's the thing, is it all depends on what you're doing and why you're doing it. I mean, if you're doing it, when you play in a band, part of your job is to try and make money for the venue, right? If you're whatever kind of band you have, like what I realized is the more I could become, friendly with the owner of the bar or whatever it might be and draw a good crowd, they pay you more money. The more you can draw a crowd. So it's easier when you go in not just thinking, it's my band and, because the venue still has to make money, right? So it's however however you can make that work. And again, the more reputation you can build, that's why social media is so great, because it isn't just about the music. There's a billion choices for music for every one of you and for me. So it isn't that. It's got to be something else, right? You've got to find people that are willing to follow you and believe in what you're doing. Whether it's a cover band, whether it's an original band, whether it's videos on YouTube, it doesn't matter, whatever it is, you know? So let's see here. Have I talked to Steve Grimmett lately? I talked to him last week. He's doing great. String skipping, sorry. String skipping. Okay, so back to string skipping. So if we think about string skipping, okay, the big thing is understanding, again, you can decide whether you want to pick or slur the patterns, right? What's nice is if you think about it, if I was going to play this, let's just say I was going to play this. So I'm going to play a C major string skip here. Now I have two choices as I play this. Either I'm going to pick it, right? So I'm playing 10, 9, 12, then skipping the second string and playing 10, 12, or 8, 12, excuse me. Right? Now, if I want to try and get that up to speed, I would do more of like the Paul Gilbert thing where instead of picking them all, I would hammer that 12 right there, which gives me an opportunity to get my pick ready on the next string. And also, it doesn't require me to have to do an up strum, because if I'm playing down, up, I have to jump over and then do that up strum. If I don't pick that 12, I've got time to just head over to that 12 or the 8th fret of the first string and pick that. And then what I can do from there is I can hammer and pull that 12 right there. Or pick it, whatever. Or just, you know, I can do that. So when I come back down, then I'm going to pick that 12, do a pull off, and then start all over again. Right? So there's a lot of ways that you can approach it. The big thing is understanding that it just comes with doing it over and over and over slowly, but understand your approach. If you're going to pick it all, you know, you have to be careful that you're not going to hit the string in between, right? I mean, if I'm doing it a string up, let's say I was doing that up here on G, right? So I'm doing a G major. So now I've got 9, 12, or excuse me, 10, 12, excuse me, 10, I don't know what I'm saying, 10, 9, 12, and then skipping a string going to the second string playing 8, 12. So it's the same shape. And then the other thing is you kind of keep a little bit of a palm mute going. So you can keep everything nice and clean as you're playing. Right? So that's that obligation thing I was talking about before, where you might feel like you're supposed to pick it all because the book that you're reading out of or whatever says to pick it all, and I think that's fine. But you got to figure out what organically, authentically works for you when you're playing, because otherwise you could have been doing something amazing with that by using a legato technique, and you could have been on to 10 other things, but instead we're learning how to pick that. Now, there's nothing wrong with that. If in your mind and in your world it's worth the time and it's worth that effort, then by all means you should do it. But these are the things we have to weigh every single day is, A, do I need to learn this? B, what am I going to do with it? C, how am I going to approach it? And then B, D, how am I going to implement that into a logical part of my playing? Because even once I learn to do this, I got to figure out something to do with it, right? I got to figure out how to sell that in my playing. And I don't mean financially. I mean, I got to make a way to put that in. To make it something that would be worth using, you see? Otherwise, I'm just learning how to play it so I can play, you know, Canon in D or something like that, right? Okay, let's keep going here. Let's say I and alternate picking and go from 3 notes on the B string to the E string. Do I pick up? Pick down as in hybrid picking. Well, it wouldn't be hybrid picking, it'd be economy picking. Bruce, I'm talking to Bruce here. Let's say you're alternate picking and you go from 3 notes on the B string to an E string, right? So what you're talking about is this. Like, let's say I'm going 12, 13, 15 on the B string, and I'm going to go to the 12th fret, the E here, of the first string. So it depends on what you're doing. Economy picking is when you push through, you continue pushing through like a sweep. So you'd go down, up, down, push through to the down, and then you'd keep going. Now, I'll use those a lot when I'm playing something where I go, and I'll push through multiple strings, like a sweep, right? Like an arpeggio. See, I'll use that technique when I'm doing multiple strings. But I've never been an economy picking player where every time I change strings, I keep the same down going. Because what happens with economy picking is you're going down, up, for those of you that don't know, if you're doing 3 notes on a string, you're going down, up, down, down, up, down, down, up, down, down, up, down, and you're pushing the pick through each time. So you're pushing through. I never learned how to play it that way. I learned how to play it alternate picking, which is down, up, down, up, down, up, down, up, down, up, down, up. So that's how I learned how to play it, okay? So economy picking was something that came later for me that I use when I'm trying to cut through multiple strings in an arpeggio fashion. Neither one is wrong. Just think about this though, Bruce. If I was here and I go down, up, down, and I push through with a down, down, up, down, the question is, there's nothing wrong with that, okay? The question is what do I do to get back, right? So if I'm playing, let's say I want to do this. So I'm playing 12, 13, 15, 12, 14, 15, and I'm just coming back. So what happens right there is I'm going down, up, down, up, down, up, down, up, down, up, and then I start back over on the down. If you do economy picking, you'd have down, up, down, down, up, down, up, down, but then you're on a down here, so then you're gonna have to jump over the string there anyway. So I think, to be honest with you, Bruce, there are times when you're going to use it, and there are times that you probably wouldn't. And I don't think you're going to be right or wrong either way. I just think you gotta figure out what works best. I did a guitar course a while ago. I always forget the name of it. But it was all about connection points, which is one of the most important things, because we learn how to play a lick, or we learn how to play an idea, but when we try and implement it, and that idea has to connect to another idea, we can be on the wrong finger, or we could be on the wrong pick direction for whatever's coming next. And so we always have to be aware that however we're approaching something, we have to think about how it's connecting to the next thing, right? And I don't mean to get confusing, I just want you to think about that. So as I'm playing this, what I'm trying to do as best I can, got to warm up a little bit though, is trying to keep everything as little as possible. Well, it wasn't unlocking the fretboard, Angelo, although I did talk about it a little bit in there. There was another one. But the point is that when you're playing, I always have to be aware of what finger I wind up on at the end of something, and then decide what I'm going to do from there. Because I never used to think about that, and then that's where I'd wind up getting hiccuped. Like I'd try and do something and it wouldn't work, and then I'd get lost, or it just wouldn't sound smooth. So once I started learning to think about, like if I'm on my third finger, what do I want to do from there? Like if I slide down, if I just slid down, I know I've got to go to one of these fingers to continue on, right? I got to be aware of that. Or if I'd gone something like this, and went to this note instead, and then slid down, That's going to sound a little different, but that sets me up for all these other fingers being ready to go on this side. Where before I was sitting here, I'm kind of halfway in between. Now, neither one's right or wrong. It's just I got to be aware of that because when I shift to somewhere else on the fretboard, I'm setting myself up, right? If I'm on the first finger, I got to move forward. I got to do something with these other fingers. I can't keep going back unless I keep sliding back, right? But at some point, I'm still got to use these other fingers because I'm on my first finger. Or if I move on my third finger or my pinky or something like that, then I've got these other fingers available to do something lower or higher or whatever. Hopefully that makes sense to you because I never used to think about that. Now, I am very aware of that all the time. So if I wind up on my pinky, I know I'm either going to keep going through my pattern or I'm going to slide up somewhere else and I'm going to keep going. But again, at some point, if I'm on my pinky, at some point, I got to do something with the other fingers, right? I can keep sliding, but at some point, I got to move forward. I got to do something with those other fingers. So that's the way I kind of approach picking as well. And I don't always make a point to just pick everything. Like often I'll use picking and slurring at the same time. I'll use a lot of legato stuff while I'm playing as well. Now, hybrid picking that Bruce had mentioned earlier, hybrid picking is when you actually take another finger and use it to do things. And there's a lot of super cool stuff that you can do with a hybrid pick as well, but that's a little bit different kind of thing. So yeah, I just think eventually you're probably going to use all of them. I grew up, I'm just being honest with you, I grew up being an alternate picker. But economy picking came in when I started learning to mix my scales with my arpeggios, and hybrid picking came in even later than that. Okay? Let's see here. Bruce says, okay, that makes sense. I wasn't sure if one was the old way and the new way. No. I think there's no doubt that picking, like the guys I grew up listening to, whoever, from Yngwie Malmsteen to whoever, they were always alternate pickers. Paul Gilbert, Steve Vai, Joe Satriani, but Steve Vai and Joe Satriani always did a lot of legato stuff too. Even Malmsteen and Gilbert for that matter. And then you move into the John Petrucci kind of players, all those guys. And I think everybody uses a little bit of all of those, but if you watch John, he's very much an alternate pick kind of player. So let's see here. Bruce says let's see, Ken says, gotta warm up. Dream of playing as well as you. Well, you're too kind. It's true, though. I mean, I am just like you guys. I am my worst critic. So I know when I'm locked in. I can tell when I'm locked in. And if I'm not locked in, I can still play and it'll work. But it's not a happy place for my brain. I like when things are locked in. Let's see here. Bruce, the lick I was doing was 12, 13, 15. Yeah, there you go. So if you're going to do like 12, 15, 13, 12, so that's what you were doing. There really is no other way of doing that. Like if you tried to economy pick that, you're just going to wind up with a down, and you're going to be down here in outer space, right? That's that kind of connection point I'm talking about, is you'd wind up here when you want to be on the 15 on the second string. So what's your choice? Well, now you got to come all the way back up, try and skip the first string to get to that 15, right? You'd have to jump over the second or the first string to get to the second string. That doesn't work, right? For that particular situation. If I push through down, up, down, down, I'm here. Well, how am I going to get to that 15? Where if I go down, up, see, I go up, guess what? Now my pick's up here. It's ready for a down. And Angelo says it used to be more about speed with Petrucci, more melodic. Yeah, and I think that's with everybody. I think all of us, as you get older, that's kind of what happens, is when you're younger, you're very adamant about, certainly growing up in the era that we grew up in. I don't know anymore with kids, I'm sure. There's just a ton of amazing players out there, really young guys that are just incredible. But that was my primary thing when I was a kid was speed. I never really thought a lot about melody or phrasing and things. It was all about woodshedding, just practicing over and over and over. And once I got older, about 10 years ago, that's when I really started thinking about other stuff. And I've loved the transition. I just can't play as fast as I used to. It's just that's the way it is. Bob says, if you had to pick one guitar player that you would rate number one, who would that be? I couldn't. I wouldn't even want to, because I couldn't. There's so many different players for so many different reasons. I couldn't. I couldn't even name you a top five, I don't think. Because there's players that influenced me to play, and then there's players that I loved when I was first learning how to play, and now there's players now that I just love. Yeah, there's just all kinds of guys out there. I would certainly say Andy Timmons would be in my top 10. Andy Timmons, I just think he's an amazing player. Nick Johnston probably would be in there somewhere. If you guys know who Per Nilsson is from Scar Cemetery, he'd probably be in there somewhere. There's a whole slew of new players out there that I just think are amazing. And some of those guys aren't new. Some of those guys have been Mateus Asado. If you guys have ever heard Mateus before, Pliny. I love Pliny. I love Pliny's playing. But like Mateus Asado is just, I don't know. And he's like 23 or something like that. I don't even know how old he is, but he's just sickening good. And not just from a technique standpoint. He's just an amazing player. Let's see here. Do you know of the Flying V, the ML style guitars that have the 5-position blade pickup selector like you have? Well, I know of Flying Vs. I'm not sure which one the ML is, but I know the Flying V. If you ever really flub a lick while playing live, what do you do to not let the audience know about it? And how do you set your mind instantly for, you just move on. Everybody makes mistakes. There's not a single guitar player that you listen to that doesn't make mistakes on stage. Every single one does. Everybody. But you got to understand, when you're live, when you're playing live, the audience, everything's happening in real time. So they're coughing and cheering and talking and screaming, and you're playing, and all these things are happening in real time. So they're not assessing everything like you do when you listen to an album. Like when you're sitting there listening to everything and everything has to be perfect, right? It's a different thing. Plus there's the live element. If I'm on stage and I'm headbanging, you're trying to entertain the audience. You're being a part of the energy that's happening. And that's different than just trying to make sure that all the notes are absolutely perfect. Now, I'm not saying that gives you carte blanche to make mistakes. It doesn't, but mistakes happen. You just move on. Now, if it's an ugly mistake, if you're playing, something like that, then you laugh and you move on, because what else can you do, right? But most of the time, you don't, I don't know, after you've been playing a long time on stage and after you really know your material, you don't make a lot of mistakes per se, but you might miss a note here and there, but it's not anything that the audience is going to know. For those of you that have played on stage and played loud before, you know what I'm talking about. Half the time, it's so, you on stage are thinking and hearing way more than the audience ever does. They're not hearing all that, and they're not trying to hear all that. They're just trying to enjoy the show. So you gotta be careful with that stuff. I mean, if you're blundering a ton of stuff, obviously you need to practice more, whatever that situation is. But I don't know, you just kind of let it go. Things happen. Guitar player with Tori Kelly. I must have missed the first part of that. I'm not sure. What do you think about Mark Tremonti? I think he's a good player. He's not one of my go-to guys. There's just so many. Al Di Meola, another one, just amazing player. But those aren't players that I go to when I need stuff, but where they might be for you. And that's not a bash on any level. You have to be inspired by people. You got to find players that inspire you to want to play, and then you have to find players that have information that you can use, right? I mean, there's players that you can go to and go, that guy plays stuff or that girl plays stuff that I get. I get some of those things. I can use that stuff in my playing. So they become very useful to you. And then there's players that just inspire you. Eddie Van Halen used to inspire me. I never wanted to learn how to play like Eddie Van Halen. I never practiced to try and beat Eddie Van Halen. that was never my gig. It doesn't mean I didn't like him. It doesn't mean I didn't like Van Halen. I loved Van Halen. Hugely inspired by that whole movement. But as a guitar player, that wasn't what I wanted out of my playing, for sure. As a kid, I really wanted Malmsteen. I practiced Malmsteen licks all the time, and then started realizing that all this harmonic stuff I was learning, I never could use in any of the stuff I played anyway. The speed, the technical aspects I could do, but I finally figured that out and went, okay, well, maybe there's something else out there. So, that Lance King song, Limitless, you jammed to the other day, rocked. Yeah, Lance is a buddy of mine. I played in a couple of bands with Lance, and he's just an amazing guy, amazing singer, and the songs are a lot of fun. Thank you for that. How's your signature guitar coming? I like to say inspired by, because it's not really my signature guitar. It's just something that Steve and I got together and decided we wanted to try and make something that would be kind of an all-around beneficial guitar for people. So I think it's still coming good. I haven't talked to those guys in a little while. I've been so busy with so many other things. But Nuno Betancourt, great guy. Mateus Asado plays with Tori. I got you. Plays with Tori Kelly. You got it. Thank you, Steve. Yeah. And Mateus, I mean, that gig is so weird for him and Tori Kelly, but kudos to him, because he's such an all-around crazy good player. He could play with just about anybody. Just a great, very inspirational watching Mateus Asado. I love it. Did you go to the Kiss concert this year, and did you and your daughter like it despite not having our beloved Ace in the band? I haven't seen him on this last tour. I just, I don't go to a lot of big concerts anymore. I love smaller shows. I went and saw Devin Townsend and Apocalyptica and God, I'm trying to think of some other people I've seen just recently that are just a lot of that kind of stuff. I love to go to smaller shows like that. I can't think off the top of my head, but love Steve Howe from Yes. He can play rock, classical, ragtime. Come to think of it, I hate him. Now, see, that's exactly it. Inspires you, but then makes you want to turn your guitar into a coffee table. The more I learn, the more I realize I just want to play like me. That's it. At some point, you figure that out. But you use other people as influence. Like, I love going to players that I love and just finding something new that they do. And I go, oh, yeah, I should have thought of doing something like that. And you just try and find these, it's just, I don't know, there's so many things that I'm inspired by. And, so I love learning songs. I love learning challenging things that are really hard to play and stuff for the guys I play with and different things like that. And then I just love picking things out of stuff that I like, which is where I kind of started the idea of the VIP members thing, was teaching little things that were really useful. Just something small that you could take and go, wow, that's cool. I'm going to use that. I'm going to find a way to use that. Just cool stuff like that. Let's see here. David says, thank you for making the video when you played Blues Saracena the other day. Blues is so awesome. Such a great player. Such a great, cool rock player. I find that sometimes I'll be watching or listening to a song that will give me an idea for something. Yeah, that's what it's all about. It's just, Francis, what I learned is that I stopped trying to get 10 of those, because then I'd never remember any of them. Anytime I went to jam, they're all gone. So I started learning, I'm only going to grab 1 or 2 of those and make sure that they are embedded into myself before I move on to something else. Okay? I'm the same. Smaller venues are so much more cozy. Yeah, I just dig that kind of thing. So going to shows with 20,000 people, I'm not really into it anymore. Plus, I'm 5'2", so I can't see anyway unless I sit way up in the stands. But yeah, just smaller shows are a lot more fun for me to, and my wife. We both have very similar interests in music. So what I'm looking to do is play music in my head and getting from my head to my hands. Yeah. David says, I got the modes down. Now I'm working on my bag of licks for every color. That's the thing, is it's just, you guys, it sounds like you all got the right thing going on. I mean, you just got to keep trying to find inspiration and motivation and things that you can do, small things that you can do to keep, the big picture stuff, the theory and the modes and technique and, 3-note per string and all those things. They're very important, very important. But along the way, keep trying to find creative things that you hadn't thought of before. Even if it's just pentatonic, trying to approach a different way of playing your pentatonic. Instead of just playing up and down, find something new. You know, just something that you can do that shakes things up a little bit, right? Yeah, and playing every day is absolutely key. All right, everybody, I got to get going. I'm going to go have some supper, hang out with my family for a while. You all have a wonderful evening/morning/afternoon, and I will talk to you soon. And remember GearFest, right? Remember, if you can make a point to be there on Friday with me, and then Sunday, of course, we will do the meet and greet. It would be awesome to see you all there and just hang out for a while and just have some fun, all right? It's a fun place. Fun stuff going on, lots of gear all over the place, lots of people to talk to. It's just great, all right? Very positive. All right, take care, everybody. Take care, and I'll talk to you soon.